Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this knowledge sharing session on driving digital transformation and sustainability in agribusinesses through uncertain times. My name is Jyoti and I'm Director Marketing at CropIn. COVID-19 has led to a widespread economic distress throughout the Southeast Asia region. The pandemic has had profound impacts on food systems, including food security, nutrition, food supply chains, livestock, natural resource management, etc. Given the recommendations around social distancing, the agri sector is facing challenges such as supply chain slowdown, workforce shortage, extension teams not being able to visit the fields, food safety concerns, health concerns, etc. This is a difficult situation to be in, and there is a need to identify new and creative ways to connect all the stakeholders in the agri value chain digitally, and to manage relationships to ensure efficient supply of products from farm level to the consumers. Joining us today are industry experts from the Southeast Asia region, from renowned institutions and organizations, and we are glad to host them today. We have on our panel, we have Shijo Joseph from East West Seed. East West Seed is one of the world's leading vegetable seed companies headquartered in Thailand and with presence across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. EWS has 17 R&D establishments in 7 countries, with exports to over 60 countries and serving nearly 20 million farmers around the world. Next on the panel is Vivek Sharma from Arna Agro. Arna Agro is headquartered in Ho Chi Minh City and offers high quality products to the best restaurants, hotels, department stores, and gourmet food outlets across Vietnam. They partner with brands and businesses that are passionate about food and provide exceptional, unique gourmet products. Our third panelist for today is Arin Pruksanusak from True Digital Group. True Digital Group is a business unit launched by True Corporation, a leading telecom conglomerate in Thailand, a company set out to be digital transformation enabler in Southeast Asia by providing an end-to-end experience for a wide range of digital solutions and services. And with their current focus on agriculture, they're looking at building a unique ecosystem of digital solutions to offer a portfolio of innovative services to farmers and enterprise markets. True Digital Solutions aims to impact nearly 6 million farmers in Thailand over the next few years. And our last panelist for today is Arjun Dutta from CropIn. CropIn is the world's leading deep tech company that is advancing innovation in agriculture. CropIn provides enterprise SaaS solutions that are powered by data and AI for farm and agronomy data management, ag predictability, and risk management. CropIn is building AI intelligence layer on every farm asset to sustainably meet the world's growing demand for food. CropIn works with leading enterprises and governments globally and has digitized over 16 million acres of farmland, working with 7 million farmers across 10,000 odd crop varieties in over 52 countries. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. And before we dive into the sessions, I want to quickly tell the attendees here that there is a Q&A chat panel wherein you can post your questions, and towards the end of the sessions, we would come back to your questions and try and answer it to the best possible extent given the time. So calling upon first is our speaker from East West Seed, Shijo Joseph, the Group CIO of East West Seed. He's a technology evangelist with over 18 years of global experience in domains including agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, life sciences, and utility. He's proficient in designing IT governance and strategy to drive innovative and disruptive change within organizations. Thank you for joining us, Shijo, and a pleasure to host you. Over to you, Shijo.
Thank you, Jyoti, and hello, everyone. I hope all of you are safe and sound wherever you are. Very happy to be here and share some of the experiences that we had around the pandemic and digital. Can we move to the next slide, Jyoti?
Sure. So
speaking about the last 1.5 years and being in an agro industry, I think when pandemic hit us unexpected, and The wave one was more of a preparation for us. We thought this is temporary, so we need to, manage a couple of months before things get streamlined. So one of the key things that we came across was also, we being in the seed industry, was seed recognized as an essential service. So when the pandemic hit, the fresh food supply was always considered. It's very important. So there was a lot of measures put in place to ensure that the logistics and the supply chain is not interrupted. We found that we took some time to make the governments realize that agro inputs as well is an essential service, because if you don't sow the seed, you will not have food in the next 6 months. I think one is, of course, getting those people, agro input providers, around that concept and ensuring that this is recognized as an essential service. And equally important was the challenge of getting that implemented on the field. While the governments recognize it, it's not necessary that people on the ground really realize this. So this was an interesting aspect, and I think as the wave 2 came in, and in the last 18 months of this pandemic, we were continuously working on this to ensure we didn't have any kind of logistics or supply chain issues. Now, I think this has to be more taken as a positive thing, the way you approach. So I hear a lot of supply chain and logistics disruptions. Probably it has been quite positive, for a lot of the agro players, because of the proactive approach that they took. Coming back to the other things, typically in our kind of business, we focus on the market drivers, like where the price is going, where the farmer behaviors are going, seasonality, climate. These are things that we also focus on. I think COVID also brought its own kind of market drivers, because there's a lockdown which could really affect the price of the product, and hence farmers are skipping seasons, etc. I think this also had a bigger impact. So you need to really track from a COVID perspective how the farmer behaviors are changing, how the price, the commodity is changing in the market, etc. One of my favorite topic around this is also we speak a lot about smallholders. So if you look at pandemic, it has really pushed us ahead at least by 5 years in terms of technology. We are typically using technology that otherwise we would have used 5 years from now. We all moved to Zoom, we are all online. I think this has also changed the mindset of the smallholder farmers in Asia. That's why I've used this word here, the entrepreneurial smallholder farmers. So I think as organizations, as agro input players, we really need to think, how are the smallholders changing now? Now, when I say they are very entrepreneurial, there's a lot of people working from home and want to do things differently. Everyone is looking at a service-based approach. So value add is the way to go. And hence, the demand for value add services along with basic agro inputs is going up very high. So I think in your own areas of the work, you need to really try to understand how the behavior of the smallholder farmers are changing. That's why we try to coin this word, say they are getting more entrepreneurial. They are not just people who take inputs, but they are also analyzing data. They want more services around it. I think that's one of the key changes that is happening as well. I think if you look at wave 1 and the wave 2 changes, I think as I mentioned at the beginning, the wave 1 was more, we thought this is temporary, but it also pushed us ahead in terms of technology and digital usage. I think by the time that 3 to 4 months of wave 1, we realized that it's not just the pandemic, but this is a way to go in terms of the use of the technologies, etc. So you see that by wave 2, we have moved to a new way of working overall, and that's going to remain. I think it is the digital way of working, and that has its own benefits. Probably it got fast tracked, or I should say that we leapfrogged to those new technologies and ways of working with the pandemic. So these are some of the key learnings or experiences we had during the pandemic. Can we move to the next slide, Jyoti? Coming to the major digital disruptions around the pandemic and what things that's been happening in the last 18 months. I think one of the key aspects, I would like to connect that back to the digital or the value-add services and the entrepreneurial farmers, more thinking about farming as a service or farm in the box kind of a solution. So I think there is a higher demand for the value-add players to come together and provide a service-based approach to the end farmers. I think this could be agro inputs, this could be market linkages for the fresh produce that they have, it could be finance and insurance, or the agronomy itself, the digital agronomy itself. I think that's the biggest change that's happening, and most of you might have experienced during the pandemic, providing agronomy services digitally and the role played by the existing platforms. Nobody might have introduced a new platform during the pandemic, but you might have made use of the social media and all of the tools that you had to really connect to the farmers and to the end customers. So I think that's going to develop, that's going to scale up really, and there could be a demand really for the farm in the box solutions as well. I think there is also a higher demand for markets insights based on farmer interactions. I just read the news that yesterday Amazon in India has launched a digital agronomy service. Now you might be wondering, somebody who is selling products on their platform, why are they launching a digital agronomy service? And that's precisely the reason I have written the third point there. That is the hook. The digital agronomy is the hook to value-add services, because if you traditionally look at the loyalty of the farmers, it still lies with the shops, with the dealers and the distributors. I think agronomy would eventually shift the loyalty of the farmers towards the companies that provide this service. I think that would bring the farmers on a collaboration platform online on which you can sell all the other value-added service. So we feel that digital agronomy is really the hook, and you see all the big tech companies that have come digitally for agro services. I think their focus is on digital agronomy, and then to bring all the other value-added services around it. I think if we have to deliver value-add services to the farmers, I think digitization is the only way to go. I think that is going to play a big role in the food security. Also, we could say that with the pandemic there is a lot of disruptions to the supply chain and all other areas. There are challenges in terms of providing services on the field. I completely agree to that. But there is also a positive side to all this. I think there are more people turning to farming, during the pandemic. We have realized that this is possible. Even for people who are working from home. There's a lot of people working from home, and people who are in the metros. It's very easy now. I can focus on some of the things that I wanted to do. So farming is that one of the things. So we have seen an increased demand for farm products and agro inputs, vegetable seeds during the pandemic. I think this is mostly caused by the increased demand for the farming, and there are a lot of people who have turned to farming. It might be out of compulsion, or it could be because now they have no opportunity to do that. So I think that would also to an extent add to the food security and also to the sustainable ways of farming. So those are some of the key things that I wanted to highlight from our experience in the last 18 months. I think the way a pandemic hit us, the way we changed the ways of working, I think this is going to evolve over a period of time. So I think it's very important that we experiment, then scale, and if you fail, then fail fast so that you can discover the new ways of working. So that's pretty much a summary of our experience, and happy to answer any questions during the Q&A sessions. Over to you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Shijo. Our next speaker is Vivek Sharma, who is the General Director of Aarna Agro. He has extensive experience in managing the rice and cashew business in Southeast Asian and African markets, and opening up new markets in USA, Europe, Africa, and Asia. He's leading new sustainable initiatives across Southeast Asia. And it's a pleasure to host Vivek today. Thank you for joining us, Vivek. Over to you.
Thanks, Jyoti. Can we move to my slide, please? So everyone knows that the COVID-19 has been impacting the world completely since December 2019. And Vietnam was at the forefront of the early fight against the first wave of COVID that came out. Vietnam stabilized by April 2020 once they shut down the whole country and everything. And then for almost 12, 13 months, there were no cases here and all the local market was quite open. However, since April 27, 2021, there has been a huge upsurge in the number of cases and in the number of deaths and in the number of constraints that have been placed on the local society over here. The biggest impacts of Vietnam is primarily agrarian society in the south and central region, and the north is becoming a global manufacturing hub. So agriculture is very important over here. If you look at the overall scenario that has come into picture with the logistical challenges that have happened in the recent few months, combine that with the upsurge in COVID cases, it has become very important to make everyone understand what are the problems, because you need empathy and sympathy from your customers, from your suppliers, from banks, from all the stakeholders that are involved. So that is the first thing that we have seen over here, that all the managers and all the people who are involved in decision making capacity have to keep a cool head and make everyone understand the problems associated with what is happening. So you can't get angry at people, you can't get angry at your staff, and you'd have less sales and less revenue, but you have to maintain your people and you have to make sure that you provide a safe environment for your workforce and also for the people who are involved. It brings a lot of cost, and therefore coming to the second point where cash is king. Today, generation of cash in all the businesses is very important. Right now, for example, in Vietnam, there is a lot of constraint placed even on banking. So only about 10 to 20% of the bank staff are allowed to go to the banks. So earlier, if you imagine, Vietnam was a very progressive country, and you could have transactions at the blink of an eye. Today, the same transactions are taking a week. So everybody needs to understand the pace of things have slowed down. It brings a lot of challenges. However, the key learning that we have had is to always maintain stable cash flow in our businesses and not really overexpand in these areas and these times when you can't have banking facilities sometimes in place. The third key learning that we have seen emerging from the current scenario and the disruption is the logistical challenges. We operate in the commodity industry, essentially, food commodities, soft commodities. The value of the items that we trade are not very high. However, sometimes given the current logistical challenges that we face in container freights and even local trucking, the freights have increased by 400 to 1000%. And today you are seeing inflation and food inflation of 2 to 5% everywhere in the world, because people are still using the old cheaper stocks that they have, and the retailers are also trying to cut off their own margins. However, these current high costs have to be passed on eventually to the consumers, and that should happen over the next 1 or 2 months, and that is going to result in food inflation of 10 to 20%. And that we will see a huge disruption happening over the next 3 months, running into the Christmas boom that will happen worldwide. So this needs to be taken care very seriously by everyone. And the key learning that we have from this is that every part of the value chain is important. I think if you look at the period between 2016 to 2018, the shipping companies were facing huge losses and there was no capacity expansion in that sector. That is why this whole scarcity has been created. Also, the way the whole worldwide logistics supply chain for food and other things have been structured over the last decade is just in time. If you look at the 1980s, 1990s, even the early 2000s, people used to operate on a 3-month cycle of their stock. Today, everybody in the last 5 years, 6 years is operating on just-in-time basis. That created this huge upsurge in demand suddenly that has come up after the March, April 2020 lockdowns that happened. The GDP of every country went down, and then suddenly when they opened and they started to come up. So I think businesses, especially in the food sector and commodities, need to understand that they have to keep larger stock and they will have to manage their inventory much better than they are today. Then coming to the things that have changed due to digital technology, Shijo is very right in saying that the adoption of new technologies has been quite fast. Whatever we would have seen 5, 6 years later, we are seeing today. And that is one key area where growth is coming up. Also, we should be thankful that everywhere in the world, internet is quite successful, and especially in Southeast Asia, internet coverage and smartphone usage is very high in these areas. The only challenge is how to ask a 60-year-old farmer to start using your applications. That is the biggest challenge. If someone who is doing something for the last 30, 40 years, suddenly you go and ask him to change. And we were using field workers and field staff to go and train the farmers. But with current social distancing and transport and logistics concerns, over the last 3, 4 months, our people haven't been able to move out in the fields. So that is a key challenge. We try and mitigate that by using social media and messaging apps and doing video calls and video chats. However, that is a key challenge that we will have to somehow overcome. Because sometimes the farmer have small screens and video calls are not suitable. Sometimes they have old smartphones, so that also becomes a challenge for us. The one key area in which we have seen a huge upsurge in Vietnam is banking. Earlier, farmers used to only ask for cash, and there was a huge cash handling which used to happen. We were carrying huge amounts of cash. It was a security risk and even a cash risk that we faced. However, with the current social distancing norms that are in place in Vietnam, banking has taken off. So I think the unbanked farmers are now coming into the banking space, and that will give us a huge advantage in terms of mitigating our cash risk in the first place. The second is to create a history for them so that they can, once their data is uploaded on the smart farm app that we are using, and also we can create a credit history for them basis the management that we are doing for the cooperatives and the farmers. So that is a big thing for us in the rural areas. Also, the farmers who were not really into giving data and sharing data are today they have a lot of time on their hands. Earlier, they used to go out and sit across and talk to their friends, but right now that is not possible. So their only outlet is the phone that they have. So getting the farmers on the phone and asking them to come online and talk and say, this is a huge adoption that is happening in terms of new technologies and new apps that are coming up. A lot of new companies have started coming into this space in terms of giving farmers advice on how to treat their pests and diseases. They can take photos, upload them. Right now, that is generally a free model, but I think eventually, once the farmers are hooked onto it, then they will try and monetize it. If you look at the overall food security issue currently, I think the world over the last 6, 7 years, we have seen a lot of buildup of food stocks, especially grain and feed and everything else. The only concern is that China is holding about 70% of the global food stock. So, and then you have India and US following that. But if you look at food scarce countries, which are generally in Africa, and also some countries which seem to be food secure, like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, one bad monsoon and one bad rainy season, and they are into the market for importing foodstuffs and trying to increase prices everywhere. Then they have issues with foreign exchange availability, wherein they are not able to pay for their imports. I think some countries like Ivory Coast in Africa, they are doing pretty well. They have increased the farmers' subsidies, and they have increased the amount of support that they give the farmers, and also they are incentivizing the companies to go there and operate with the farmers so that they can grow locally, like Nigeria did about 4 years back in terms of rice. So I think the governments in a lot of countries are very, very scared because nobody wants a repeat of 2008 and 2011 of the food crisis, because staple foods really will drive regime change in a lot of places. If you look at the 2011 Arab Spring, also it happened due to bread prices shooting up. So in this part of the world, in Vietnam, we are very safe because it produces a lot of food and exports. In fact, we are on the other side, wherein we have a problem of not being able to export in time in terms of fresh produce that we have. So a lot of innovations keep happening. People are using dragon fruit for, flavoring bread, and now you have dragon fruit bread as a new, flavor that is coming out. So a lot of innovations are happening in the food security space. If you look at the supply chain, continuous availability and business disruption that is happening, it is going to be a huge, huge challenge for everyone. With the current freights and costs that are being paid by everybody, this is not sustainable for either governments or businesses. If you look at the shipping companies' profits, they have, it's like cumulative of the last 20 years they have made just in 1 year. So I think there will be some regulatory issues which will crop up, and the shipping companies will come back by reducing their capacity and increasing the freights further. So we have to really see how the governments can really regulate this space for the common smallholder farmer, who is the eventual beneficiary, or I would say in current times they are really, really suffering. So we have to really use the technology which is happening right now. The Vietnam government is using a lot of video calls and, like you said, Zoom and everything which is happening. And we will really need to have local solutions. Maybe we have global solutions which are tailor-made and custom-made for local applications, like we had CropIn to tailor make the smart farm for Vietnamese market. So it requires a lot of time and pain that we have to go through, because you can't travel, everything has to be done online. You will have to customize things which are not really in your own language. It is a challenge, but we will have to meet that and see. I think so you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. It was quite insightful. Our next speaker is Arin Pruksanusak, who Arin is the Agriculture Tech Vertical Lead at True Digital Group. He's currently leading the team to venture and transform the Agtech sector on farming, livestock, and aquaculture verticals in Thailand, and is focused on leveraging IoT and data analytics-based solutions. Thank you for joining us, Arin, and a pleasure to host you. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jyoti. So on to the next slide, please. So like Jyoti said, True Digital Group is part of a telco company. So basically, we're the digital arm of telco company. But some of you may know in a larger picture, so True Corporation itself is part of CP Group, and CP Group is a conglomerate, and one of its main business is the food business and agro business. So on the perspective, so they are the one who produce food, so we are the one who will be providing solutions to produce food more efficiently, to them and to the public market as well. So of course, as a starting unit, the COVID hit us hard, very hard, and hit Thailand hard. So on the larger perspective, Thailand itself be one of our main economic driving factors is the tourism. So every year we receive lots of tourists, and with the COVID, so basically tourism has got the heaviest blow. So with that said, so the food demand dropped a lot. So because less population coming into country, so then it means less demand for food, and people are everywhere. So people are afraid to spend for things like technology that some technology might not appear like immediate investment for them, but even so, even if the solution seems to have to be very valuable, they will start to lean whatever they can lean out first in order to save cash, right? So like I said, on the market side, economy has been hit, and even from the team side, I think in Thailand the COVID hit us hard for almost 2 years long. So team collaboration for a starting unit is very difficult. So I barely met my team face to face. So and what's more, when we are growing business, we would like to meet customers as much as possible, especially in Agro business. So in Thailand, be it in livestock or aquaculture or in crop business, farmers will tend to want to meet face to face more. So we would like to meet customers for lead generation, selling, and most importantly, customer support. And for customer support, we need to travel cross province and cross city, and that is very difficult during this time. But anyway, that's the case. That's the impact we got, and so we have to find a way to work around that. So first of all, even within the team itself, we try to use whatever tool we can, like a virtual office tools, metaverse, etc. Even project management tools that has become more important than ever. So that's the first part, to make sure that the work continue well, and the morale of the team is high using virtual office. Secondly, even though the team, we cannot meet customers that often, like others, we need to try to work around with the distant marketing or social media and online marketing. Things like not only Facebook, but we try to use the local digital tools that farmers are familiar to. Webinar has become a new thing for product training, and even regular news and scientific academic seminars, just to keep them engaged. And last, but I think is the most important part, is that the way we change our working way is that we really empower the local team, the extension team and the local sales team. We give them a lot of flexibility, be it within our own conglomerate, our own ecosystem, or our partners. So because even though social distancing is there, traveling across the city is hard, but still farmers tend to be more comfortable seeing people from within the city that might not have the severe COVID case compared to Bangkok or other cities. So meeting with the local people are still somewhat okay to them. So we empower them to hear whatever meeting you need to do, hear whatever seminar you need to do, gather people with social distancing, and then you give academic and basically a road show. So that's somehow the measure that we use. And of course, they need to the local team need to connect with not only with the local farmers, but the local cooperative, the local bank, especially the local branches of Bank of Agriculture. That's also something they need to connect in order to continue the business. Next slide, please, Jyoti. So of that is some from what we adapt, but also when we look at the whole landscape in livestock, aquaculture, and crops, one thing that we can see is that since the COVID hit us hard, people try to lean out whatever expenses they can lean. And in terms of COVID itself, it affects the food production heavily, because once there's a COVID case in the food production plant. Basically, the operation need to stop for 2 weeks, and that hit them hard, and even more. So it affects the export of the business. So automation has been, I would say, has an increasingly demand, like the way that Zoom is skyrocketing with the COVID going on. Automation is following on that trend because COVID, we like to minimize human contact within our food production process. So people are looking for automation solutions that, of course, are affordable and feasible for them. And once people have the automation solution, the upcoming tech, I would say, would be the auditing tool, how to ensure that, okay, the food processing is safe and is, meet the hygienic standard, not only from what the producer said, but it's, the transparency is there so that everybody in the supply chain know, okay, this food is safe, I can be comfortable to buy from them without getting infected. So I would say the auditing tools would be something that follows during the trend. And finally, with COVID, like mentioned before, it affects many business to travel to meet farmers, but they also affect the professionals that give advisory or take care of the farms. Let's say veterinarian or crop extension team, they cannot meet farmers in order to monitor the fields and give proper advice on how to maximize their production. So we have seen the trends that the remote advisory tools will be more important than ever, that will drive the agro business, like the same way that telemedicine is growing in health sector. I would say tele crop advisory will be somewhat of the growing trend as well. Yep. So that's what we see, the booming tech in Thailand. And our last part about the global sustainability, food sustainability. I would say, fortunately, Thailand, we have less impact on that issue because we are the more on the food producer side. But what he does have is that with the logistic problem and the COVID problem was and so on, we tend to have food surplus and oversupply, and that affects the price of the commodity and many foods a lot. And so we have seen cases where farmers actually, some of the dairy farmers we meet, they actually have to throw away the milk they get just because they cannot sell. The quota has been met. So we have seen those cases. And I think with that, so farmers need to lean out whatever they can, and they are very careful with their investment that they're gonna do. So, but that's something that the team still need to work around. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Arin. Coming up next is Arjun Dutta, who is VP Sales at CropIn. Arjun is a sales leader with over 18 years of experience leading high-performing sales teams and growing businesses exponentially. He's proficient in leading sales for enterprise and mid-market segments in markets across India and Asia Pacific. His work focuses on leveraging AI and machine learning to drive farm digitization, predictability, traceability, and sustainability in the agriculture sector. Thank you for joining us, Arjun. Pleasure to host you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jyoti, and thank you to all the speakers. It provides great insights across various spectrums. Now, based on our experience working with various governments and enterprises in multiple geographies, we have identified the top 6 strategies that have worked well in the favor of the industry as such. Social safety. When I talk about social safety, the governments and the private interventions demands managing food loss and reviving the food and the demand of the food intake. We have seen governments working very, very closely with the conglomerates and agri-industry as such for better procurement coordination or tax rebates. Having a program to quickly employ the migrants who have come back to their own villages and providing direct cash transfers for their services have worked really well in general. Distribution of food coupons or food packages in ensuring national security has been extremely human and necessary. Risk management, extremely crucial. I believe COVID-19 has presented an opportunity to transform the crop insurance scheme, which covers the revenue, both yield as well as price risk for the farmers. This would surely open up markets substantially. The insurance companies have also started taking new technologies more seriously now. As an example, the CropIn's AI/ML solutions that we have been helping with various state governments in India, they utilize our algorithms to optimize the crop cutting experiment points with limited resources, insurance underwriting and risk monitoring, and customization of crop insurance products, schemes, yield index monitoring. All of this has become so mainstream right now. The other points which I've seen is farmer producer organizations. They can actually transform themselves into aggregators at this stage. We have seen FPOs who have onboarded more farmers and partners and helped these farmers to diversify their market or get into secondary commodities. Creation of more FPOs or farmer groups should definitely be encouraged at this stage, and it also reduces risk to an extent. Thirdly, the secondary agriculture. Encouraging and providing advisory to the farmers for other source of livelihood as well. So even if they are into rice, you can also encourage them for, let's say, aquaculture or flowers, fruits, poultry, could be any of those aspects, right? And we have seen farmers and FPOs working very closely, as well as the industries working very closely for the right market linkages as well. It's become very, very important right now. An excellent example that I can think of is one of our FPO partner who was engaged into multiple crops have suddenly moved into marigold farming, for example, and they are engaged with 12,000 farmers. And they extract something called lutein vitamins. This has, and it's very, very high value. So this has obviously improved in our livelihood factor, of course, and of course, a cushion for their incomes too. The fourth option, next slide, please. The next we have seen is the financial reforms in this industry. Access to loans has to be enabled and intensified, especially for the small and marginalized landholders to revive this sector. Restructuring of agricultural loans and repayment of schedules has become absolutely mandatory now. One of our Europe-based microfinance clients offers financial services to the unbanked farmers in Indonesia. They analyze data from the ground, they analyze data from the satellites. Insights are used for various risk assessments and easy financing and repayment options. And the more we talk to various financial institutes, I think people understand the impact of technology right now, and people have started deploying it, be it smaller pilots or the larger scope, but this has become absolutely important at this stage. I think a lot of other participants here and the panelists here also brought importance of stakeholder partnership. And we have seen rigorous efforts and inter-institutional partnerships are absolutely inevitable. Stakeholder partnership help to drive that information and knowledge gaps by creating awareness, leveraging various ICT platforms, social media platforms. All of those has become so crucial at this stage. There are multiple use cases where, as part of the program, there are equipment manufacturing companies, input organization, all part of the CropIn environment. As an example, providing climate smart advisories to the farmers, providing them with easy access to finance and inputs to these farmers. The idea here is also to educate people not to opt for panic buying or hoarding of essential items, to maintain hygiene of market functionalities, and to sanitize market yards in addition to social distancing, which are essential for smooth functioning of the markets because of the COVID-19, of course. The other we have seen a lot in the last 1.5 years now is investments. Investments in R&D, cold storage, ICT platforms, advisory, disseminations has become absolutely mandatory. As per our latest 2021 report, agri-tech and agri-ecosystem as such have received significant interest from investor community. There are several estimates which indicate that approximately $30 to $35 billion of agri-pool will be created in agri-logistics, Agtech, and agri-input delivery by 2025. This, of course, encourages businesses and farmers to store commodities at the farm level as well, providing storage against distress selling. So if there is no storage, then they will obviously sell at a lower price. The markets eventually crash. So we want to stop that. Well, the vulnerabilities in agriculture, supply chain, and depleting workforces caused by the pandemic crisis have hurt farms of all sizes. I believe most of the governments have acted quickly to help agriculture navigate this unprecedented crisis. Of course, more measures are needed to reboot the sector, but private enterprises needs to be at the forefront and work in a very, very collaborative manner. This will only strengthen the entire ecosystem, is what our learning has been for the past 1.5 years now. Well, those are the slides from my side, but for the next section, we'll start with the panel discussions. We'll start with few questions that I've made note during the speakers were talking. So let me start with Shijo first. Shijo, in your presentation, you spoke about digital connect. What challenges did you overcome? Since we all understand the farmers doing data entry, it's a process, plus accuracy of those data, plus businesses still pondering whether we should invest in digital technologies or not. So how did you overcome all of that challenges, and any suggestions for the industry?
I think I probably might have very briefly mentioned, but otherwise, I think when we think about digitization, we first think about farmer having an app or a technology to solve the problems. I think the most important thing is to do a customer experience journey mapping to really understand what is the issue that customer is facing, and that could be very regional, that could be crop specific. I think one of the things that we did was to use all the existing technology. Just to give you an example, the purpose was not to give a digital agronomy solution on a new platform. But the problem with the farmer with the face-to-face interaction was he's still getting an information only from one person, right? And there is also a certain amount of time that is taken for that information to be delivered. So we said, let's keep all the existing platforms as well, but let's restructure at the back so that we give a faster solution to the farmer and we give a more accurate or more quality solution to the farmer. So that is something that we understood from the customer journey or our experience, that it's not that he needs an app and a solution, but he needs a faster solution and he needs a more better quality solution. So I think that is very important. And you could definitely start with the existing platforms that you have. Probably you might be having 1,000 farmers on a WhatsApp group. That's a platform. So can we provide better service in that same platform and faster service in that platform? That has to be, the first approach. Then that's why I said you should experiment and scale. So as you see that this model is working and it is making a difference to the farmer, then you should think, what can I do additionally to scale up that particular solution? So I think that has to be the approach. And I also saw a question in the panel, from the attendees asking about what is farming as a service. So I think it's quite simple. If you look at, if you go to Amazon and buy a TV today or a mobile today, you are actually taking a service, right? You are seeing the reviews, you are seeing product comparison, then you are taking a decision to buy. So it's no more walking into a store and picking up a product. I think for farming as a service, it's all the value-add services that are coming together. So you have agro, you first need information on what can be farmed, what kind of vegetables can be done by a particular farmer based on a region. Then the agro inputs, then you have agronomy, then you have market linkages for fresh produce, then you have finance, then you have all the other things like the carbon footprint and all. So I think when all these services, value-add services come together for a farmer in a single window, that's called farming as a service. And I think most of the digital platforms are looking at enabling that as a service.
Sure, thank you, Shijo. Just a follow-up question on this with Arin. Arin, I know you are trying to impact almost 3 to 5, 6 million farmers, and it sounds very similar to what Shijo mentioned, right? Providing access to all those inputs to these farmers and creating a farming as a service. What's your strategy behind managing this entire customer base, as an example, a huge number? And how are you connecting them to the larger ecosystem as such?
Yep. Okay. So like you just said, Molly, first of all, we don't focus on the app. Let's focus on the service we need to provide to farmers, right? So first thing is that we need to plan a way to build an ecosystem of users. So by ecosystem, of course, marketing and constant news would be one way to work on that. But I would say we need to find a solution that will get them connect almost every day, like an everyday platform. So it would not be just a one service or not. So because say you may have a news section where farmers can open up and view the weather forecast, the price news, and what's going on with the pests, with the disease of the industry. But also there should be another part where farmers can look into. Let's say they might want to order some service, like might want to buy seeds, some want to buy some input, or might want to call like a harvester service to clear the field and etc. Because these multiple services, it will keep farmers engaged. And I think with the huge portfolio of service, it will attract more farmers and approach to the larger farmers. So in that case, it will be a growing strategy to provide lots of as a service revolving around farming and providing news. And I would say the last part would be to connect with the local partners, say cooperatives and banks. Because take for example, in Thailand, I think since last year, the ministry has been trying to transform the country to be what we can do as much as closing to a mega farm. Because in Thailand, I can say the average farming plot, the average farm size is like say 5 to 6 acres. That's very small compared to the rest of the world. So with that, we don't have economy of scale at all to buy things or even to sell. So in that case, the government has been trying to encourage farmers to group up together, at least to form up a community of them and call themselves a mega farm. And with that, they will have more bargaining power in when buying and selling, and have a better management. Say if they were to buy a harvester or to buy a drone, they will have more scale to use within the group.
Sure, understood. Thank you so much, Vivek. My next question is for Vivek. Vivek, over the past year, in fact more, we have been hearing a lot about traceability. Do you see traceability as something which is being demanded by your customers at this stage? Do you see a major impact in terms of revenue for yourself or for the farmers?
Right, Arjun. Traceability has become a huge buzzword over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think it started with coffee and cocoa by the Western consumers, who pushed all the value chain companies to start traceability in tree crops first, because that was where the visibility was. But with the COVID situation right now, and everybody on the phone all the time, I think awareness has increased significantly. People are starting to ask questions: where does the food on my plate come from? So what we have seen is a huge upsurge in terms of traceability requirements of end consumers. Companies are not yet demanding it in terms of food commodities and staple foods. But so we have implemented a small pilot here in Vietnam with about 3,000 farmers that we are doing. Farmers have been able to get 7 to 8% extra over their original prices in terms of traceability requirements that they meet. And consumers are willing to pay almost 30% extra
Oh, wow.
on traceable food products. So that is a huge premium that we are able to generate. And in terms of the way that we are doing it is pretty primitive, I would say, because it's based on QR codes and everything. Essentially, what we want to do is what Arin was saying in Thailand, that meet the farmers and get them into cooperatives. In Vietnam, we are very lucky because it has been a communist country for a long time, and there are farmer cooperatives and farmer unions and farmer groups which are there. So it is easy for me to go to 1,000 farmer cooperative and tie them up together and ask them to implement whatever the standards that we want to do. It's just about reducing the cost for them and giving them some premiums, and it works. It's a challenge because not everybody is willing to pay that kind of a premium. So what we have done is we have gone retail. So we have now connected the farmers to the consumers, and that is where we are operating throughout the value chain. So that is why we are able to get those premiums. Otherwise, if you look at the coffee and cocoa companies, what has been the situation is that the international traders keep almost all of the margins and don't pass much to the farmers. So in terms of the traceability premiums that they get, we are trying to append that model and trying to pass on a lot of the premiums that we have to the farmers. It is really challenging in the current time. However, I think once these COVID restrictions pass away, I think we will see a lot of requirements in terms of traceability, and US technology companies will have to come up with new solutions which are more consumer friendly rather than just scanning a QR code and reading a static kind of a story.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivek. I know I have a couple of more questions, but Jyoti, do we have time or should we get into?
Yes, I think we'll get into Q&A from the audience. We have a lot of questions coming up, some of which have been already answered by Shijo and Vivek, but we can look at some of these questions. Arjun.
One of the questions I see from Mr. Ashok Meda is the immediate need is risk sharing mechanism for each of the stakeholders across any given agri value chain. Risk coverages need to cover the uncertainties of nature related to aspects and also. And this is an open question. Anyone can answer, Vivek, Shijo, Arin. And this is an excellent question. So everyone should have some kind of risk coverage. They should share those risks and the profits. How does it work in the ecosystem right now? Vivek, you can start. So you manage a larger logistics.
I think in terms of risk management, all the risk has to be borne by the corporates who are involved in this. The farmer is not able to bear any risk. The farmer is not even willing part with $1 extra, because the total income that he has is about $1,000 to $3,000 at the maximum per year, right? And in an increasing cost environment, we can't expect a farmer to pay anything extra. In fact, the farmer will always keep on crying that he is receiving less money than what he should. So, they will always compare what they are getting right now to the best year that they have had. So all the risk has to be borne by the corporates involved. And we will have to figure out a way how to use and leverage technology to mitigate those risks. Like, for example, in Vietnam right now, we are very blessed because we are operating in the Mekong Delta. Is not much weather dependent rather than China dependent. So if the Chinese close the dams and the water is not flowing in the Mekong River, then we have a problem of salination and all those drought kind of issues. On the other hand, if they suddenly open the dams, and then there is kind of a flooding. So the other problem is that we have to really advise the farmers on what crop to grow and what variety to grow of that crop. Because what we have seen essentially is that if today for example, the price of potatoes or tomatoes is very high, everybody will go and plant tomatoes and potatoes. And then the next crop, it will be in surplus, and then the price will fall, and then they will just throw it on the fields, and then they will blame the government that, they are not buying and the prices are so low. But the problem is the herd mentality. The farmers really need to be advised what to grow, where to grow, and how to grow. I think as corporates and as technology companies, we will have to come together on that part so that the risk is minimized. Like if you, for example, if you grow sugarcane in a drought-prone area, you are, inviting trouble. So, and then you have new varieties coming up. For example, like in drought-prone areas, you can grow standing rice crops, which are with the stem doesn't bend, and it can grow in floating rice. So these things, this knowledge needs to be disseminated everywhere. I think that becomes very key in terms of risk mitigation. The risk absorption has to be by the corporates at the end of the day.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivek. The other question that has come is, how can CropIn solution system work in organic farming use case? So Ashok, when we work with customers who are into organic farming, they obviously use our tools and technology and platform to digitize all those farmers' plots on the land. It's basically the field officers or the extension officers who are doing most of the data collection from the ground. They follow those certain package of practices or guidelines that they have, and that's exactly how they keep track of the entire operations on the ground. I'll move on to the other questions. What technology innovation, and Shijo, you can pitch in here. What technology innovation did your business find vital during 2020 to the present? And what technology innovation do you think will be vital in your operations in 22 and beyond?
I think there are a lot of innovations around agriculture practices. So let me give you an example. We've been looking at how can we bring the cost of inputs, agro inputs in the greenhouses and the open fields that we have on our own. So we did a lot of experiments around IoT devices and AI and ML data, just to see how we can bring the cost down, and we were quite successful. I think this is one side of it, the availability of the technology. So I feel that during 20 to 21 now, or I would say from 19 to 2021, we were more experimenting with all these innovations and technologies. So I think the next question is this technology affordable for the smallholder farmers? I think that's a change that's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years. And we already see that, and we have already experimented with some of these technologies. So this is an existing innovation, but making it more affordable for the smallholder farmers. We are currently doing a pilot where it is affordable for a farmer to have a setup in their 2 hectare or 3 hectare land, where they can get a comprehensive information about the weather, about the moisture, and the solution is provided as an SMS to him saying that, okay, this is the time you should water, or there is a possibility of particular infection on your crop based on the pictures that are taken. So I think affordability of the innovation is the future. That's what everybody is moving to, because that is the only way you can scale all these digital solutions, especially in the Asia Pacific region.
Sure. Absolutely. We just have time for one question. Arin, I'll get this to you. What are the key parameters concerned in technology for implementing a sustainable agriculture? I know you work very closely with agribusinesses. So have you seen this come up a lot?
Yep. So I would say key parameter for successfully implementing this, I think first of all, the product needs to be valuable first. I mean, and by what I mean by valuable, it's not just what we perceive as valuable, but farmers really need to feel that it's valuable as well. So let's say for some solution that we perceive that it's going to improve the cost. Okay. Say for example, classic automating irrigation solution. Okay. Biologically, we would like to place a humidity detection sensor in the field, and we would like to trigger the irrigation based on the actual soil humidity. So that's the logic. logically we should optimize the irrigation for the plot, and then the crop should be grow effectively. But and then again, farmers might perceive that, hey, then again the cost benefits is doubtful. How much do I really get? I've never seen that. I've planted this way since forever. So that's the resistance you're gonna face. So then the way you package it, it should be something that farmers should be able to afford given their cash flow, and that they should not have to, I would say, take too long to think in order to scale it quickly. Because I have seen cases where we are selling things that cost like 6 figures down to 4 figures. The speed of scaling is different. The sales cycle is different. So in order to, I would say, successfully in terms of scale, I would say keep it affordable would be easier for the mass farmers. So that's one thing. Second, we would definitely meet the resistance, especially I can for we can see in Thailand, farmers, they have been doing that for say since forever. It's difficult to change their mindset and to go in the farm and say, hey, you should do this, because they're gonna think, hey, they have been doing that since forever. They know better than us. So that part of convincing part, I would say that another key successful factor. The last part, I would say the product needs to be tangible, and this is because when we let's say from a tech company perspective, sometimes we start thinking about the application platform, but that's not something that's tangible to farmers. I would say it's very difficult for them to pay just purely for software or advice. In that case, we need to be creative and work around to find a way to bundle it with something tangible to them in terms of service or hardware. In that case, I think that would be the key success factors to grow in say in this region.
Sure. Thank you so much, Arin. There are really some interesting questions on the chat here, which itself is a webinar topic, but we will for sure respond to each and every of those questions during the week, and we'll get back for sure. But over to you, Jyoti, for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, all the speakers, for joining us today, and thank you all the attendees for posting those questions out. In case there are any more questions that you have, please feel free to drop us a note on marketing@cropin.com. And in case you want to hear from us on our next knowledge sharing sessions, please do subscribe to our newsletter on our website. So that's it from our end today. Thank you all again. Please stay safe and have a good day ahead. Thank you.